Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome everyone to this live event. My name is Sohail Noor and I will be the host, inshallah. I would like to begin first by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands where we all have joined from, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. So once again, welcome to this live event. Inshallah, we will hold these sorts of live events um, in the future as well, once in a while, by inviting different guests. And today, inshallah, for our first live event, we have a very well-known guest, Dr. Zuleyha Keskin. Welcome, Sister Zuleyha.
Thank you, Sal, for having me. It's lovely to be
No,
here.
no worries. That's I hear you're very popular on social media.
I don't know if that's fully the case, but maybe.
Okay, that's good. All right. So our topic for today, inshallah, is the Zuleyha will help us understand this idea of small wins. Now we hear this idea all the time, like in motivational videos. We might hear it on different speakers using it. And inshallah, Dr. Zuleyha, we want you to define or make us help us understand what does small wins mean. Is there a definition or is it just a myth? So please.
Well, it's something I've thought about quite a bit, Sal. It's small wins, and it is a term that's been used a lot. I don't think that it's hypothetical. I do think that it does work, and it can be implemented in our lives. So what do we mean by small win, you might think? I have my own definition, and I would say that it's this sense of achievement that one feels after small accomplishments. So you feel this, you've achieved something after a small accomplishment. And they can be acts, they can be thoughts, they can be emotions, but they are things that require some effort on our part. Okay, so it's not the type of things that you would do out of habit. It does require a little bit of effort. Now, the thing is, small wins will vary from person to person. So what's a small win for you may not be for me. What's a small win for me may not be for you. So let me just give you an example to start off with. Now, eating chocolate is not a small win for me. I can achieve that very easily. It doesn't require any effort on my part. But deciding on having a more healthy snack like nuts instead of chocolate would be a win for me because it would require a bit of struggle, a bit of an effort on my part. Okay, but for someone else who doesn't like chocolate, not eating chocolate would not be hard for them. So it would not be a win for them. So really everyone is on their unique journey, their own unique journey. And so it really requires a level of self-awareness, knowing what comes easily to you and what doesn't, but yet what you want to achieve. The key thing about small wins is that it helps you to grow. It helps you to achieve small things one bit at a time. I'll give you another example just so we have a good idea of what we're talking about. Say praying Fajr, the morning prayer before sunrise. For one person, it may be a win to wake up for Fajr, once because they can't wake up every morning. So they set the alarm on one day and they're able to wake up, and there's this sense of achievement because what they could not do, they were able to do that particular morning. Whereas for another person who wakes up for Fajr every single morning, them waking up this morning or tomorrow morning is not really going to be a win because it's pretty much become a habit for them. So I hope you get the understanding that, when we're talking about wins, it's small things that help us to grow, and they require some level of effort. Another point I want to make is that wins are not in just one area. I think we have to think of it as a broad uh, concept, I suppose, and it's in various facets of our life. So this includes physical, in our physical being, mental, spiritual, and social. So growth or small wins can happen in physical, mental, spiritual, and social. And these can further be branched out.
Okay, so just going back to your definition of small wins, does it necessarily have to be a new habit? Like, do you have to think of a new habit, or can it be something you're already doing, and maybe you can improve on that? That could be a small win as well.
Absolutely. It can be something that you take up to another level. So even when you're doing something by habit, it's like you're on autopilot. You don't really need to think about it, but you might want to take it to another level. So in the example of waking up for Fajr prayer, I might wake up for Fajr prayer every morning, but I might say this time I'm going to do my prayers more consciously with more shuur. So you're introducing in a way a new, I guess, concept or new thing that you want to do, which isn't a habit for you. So you can build on existing practices or things that you do, but the key is, I guess, there is a bit of struggle involved for you to achieve that small win.
Okay, well that's good. I noticed you mentioned spiritual and mental. I guess usually when I hear the concept of small wins, and I have heard talks online about it, it's usually to do with, I guess, tangible behavior or something that you could see or achieve. Perhaps it's a gym, it could be success. So could you expand on this mental and spiritual win, which is probably an angle a lot of us don't hear from about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and the thing is, when we hear a lot of motivational talks, they're not always presented by I guess Muslim presenters. Nevertheless, they're still very valuable because any type of growth is going to be good for us. But what's really amazing is a lot of these principles, like the idea of small wins, can be implemented into our spiritual lives as well. And that's why I think it's really important that this idea of small wins, which I believe works and it really helps us to progress forward, can be put into other aspects of our lives too. And at the end of the day, we are spiritual beings with a physical body. From an Islamic perspective, that's how we perceive ourselves. We are a spiritual being. We're not a physical being with a spirit. There's a huge difference in that. And so when you think of it that way, spiritual growth becomes our most important, I guess, aim in life because it helps us to get closer to Allah. So we have to remember that we are a complete human being, that we do have other aspects to our growth other than our physical, like, as I mentioned, our mental, and spiritual, social, and within that includes emotional and so forth. And there is a hadith, for example, just to highlight the importance of the bigger picture, and it's a hadith that a lot of us know, that actions are judged based on intentions. So if we don't get our intentions right, how do we get our actions right? So we can actually have small wins with our intentions as well. That's an area that we can focus on. And when we focus on our intentions, that can then have a positive impact on our sincerity, ikhlas, and ihsan, our God consciousness. So you can see how it can really have a positive impact on our actions as well. And just to further highlight the spiritual component of us and the importance of, having those wins, which means growth in that area, there is a hadith that says there's a piece of flesh in the body. If it becomes good or reformed, the whole body becomes good. But if it gets spoiled, the whole body gets spoiled. And that is the heart. And here we're talking about the spiritual heart. So we can't negate, when we're talking about growth, motivation, development. We can't negate the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, as well as the social, because we are social beings as well. We can't negate the social aspect of us as human beings either. So that's
Okay.
why, to me, those are important. Yeah.
Okay. I guess you have an expertise, or you teach subjects in Islamic. I would say spirituality. Is that correct? Islamic
That's right.
spirituality or purification of the heart. Um, I guess if someone were to begin a new habit in their practice, in their
Mm.
spiritual practice, what would be some maybe one or two top most important things where a person can start more from a spiritual point of view?
So it really depends on the person's level. So, like we're all in such different levels, and that's where self-awareness is important. But I would say that their prayer, the salat, is the most important. So, looking for some type of growth within that. It could be, for example, if they do not do the sunnah prayers, to do the sunnah prayers. That could be their, if I've never done the sunnah prayers and I thought today I want to start doing it, and if I complete my 5 daily prayers today, incorporating the sunnah prayers as well, that's a win because I've done something I had not done before. Or if it's about my concentration, I feel like I don't have enough consciousness, or when I'm praying, that would be a focus. So that
Mm.
comes to the forefront. Or as I said with the Fajr prayer, it could be that, or the Quran, reciting the Quran or memorizing the Quran. Probably our prayer and Quran are the two areas where each one of us, depending on where we are, what level we're at, we can have a small win.
Mm. Okay, I'll give you a bit of a scenario.
Yeah.
So let's say, and I also wanted to ask you, maybe after this, I wanted to ask, can small wins, can they be more than one? Or maybe we'll start off with that. So let's say if someone commits to perhaps, based on what you said in the beginning, a new habit or an old habit where they want to improve in, should they focus on that for a certain amount of time and then start a small win, or can someone start new habits or try to improve old habits, um, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, or should it be just one, perfect that, and then move on to the next one?
I would suggest starting with one just to get the feel for the idea and putting it into practice. So it could be one in, any aspect of one's life. It could be, as I said, physical, spiritual, mental, or social. I would suggest starting with one and seeing how you go with that. And then once you see that it's become a habit, and if you're starting to do that thing day in, day out, then you that's also a win. It's like, wow, I've not only have I done it on one day, but now I've got this win of having made it a habit. And once I think there's that sense of, with that comes a sense of confidence. And when that confidence comes, then other things are tried. And I think that I should put a disclaimer as well. So, like, not everything that we try to achieve, we will achieve. But think of it this way: if out of 10 things that we attempt, and we achieve one of those, that's still a win. Otherwise, if we attempt 0, that means it's 0 wins. So even if we've got 10% win, that's one win. So I think that's also important to remember. Not every time we attempt something new, or not every time we exert effort into something to make it a habit or to make it part of our life, we're not going to succeed each time. We need to, I guess, be conscious of that and not be disheartened with it. We might need a new strategy on how to do it. We might need to start off with something else. Maybe we were aiming too high. So you just have to keep at it. You have to keep putting effort and really be creative in the way you approach it. And once you've achieved one, then you might try a few different things that different facets of your life simultaneously. So it depends what your priorities are. It's very hard to tell a person, okay, this is what you're going to do. They need to feel that it's important. They have to feel that passionate about it, and they have to be willing to exert the effort. It's a small effort, but it's still some effort. So it's up to the person to decide what they would want to do.
Okay, and that kind of leads me on to the next question, and that is, I guess usually when we want to motivate someone, we speak in big terms. I guess do a lot for success. Usually bigger is better. That more money, more success, or let's say the example of physical exercise. They always say you have to do a certain amount, 3 times a day exercise, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. How do you reconcile that with this idea of small wins? It almost sounds like it's not that great. So how would you look at that?
I think I think there's 4 reasons why small wins are important and why we shouldn't always be focusing on those big wins. Firstly, we cannot achieve big wins all the time. That's the reality. How many big wins can we have in one day or 1 week or 1 month? How many mountains can I conquer in my life? How many books can I write? How many degrees can I finish? If we just wait for those big wins to celebrate or to feel a sense of achievement, we will not be feeling a sense of achievement very often. So I think that when you keep that in mind, you realize that you need to take smaller chunks. We don't have big wins in our lives all the time. Secondly, we say small wins, but it's like with a lot of things, is it really a small win? In the sense, small wins can have huge impacts on our lives. A small step can have, amazing outcomes. And it's this again. Our Islam is amazing in providing this kind of incentive to us. For example, I might want to do more. Remembrance of Allah, dhikr, and according to a hadith, someone who says Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, glory and praise is to Allah, 100 times a day, and 100 times doesn't take that long. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. It took me about 2-3 seconds. If a person says that 100 times a day, all their sins will fall away, even if they are like the froth of the sea. So you can see that something small can have such a huge positive impact, such a huge positive benefit. So I guess we shouldn't undervalue small wins. So that's 2. The first one was we can't achieve big things all the time, big wins all the time. Second one is small wins can have huge positive impacts. Thirdly, big wins are made of small wins. Okay, at the end of the day, to get to a big win, you have to start with a small win. To climb a mountain, the one I mentioned, you need to take a step first. You need to take that first step. Otherwise, it's not like you're going to fly onto the top of that mountain. It's step by step that you're going to get up there. So acknowledging that first step is a positive way to move forward. And fourthly, small wins help us to create positive habits, which we've been talking about. So, you don't create habits overnight. It has to be done bit by bit, repetition by repetition, and that's when habits start to form. Driving is a very good example of that. A lot of us who are driving, we don't even put effort. We're on what we call autopilot. Whereas my daughter's now, she's on her L's. Things that would come naturally to me does not to her. So if we get to A to B with her without an accident, without any hiccups, it's a win. I get out of the car and say, Alhamdulillah, we did that well. Whereas if driving is a habit for us, it doesn't require much effort at all. So those positive habits, those small wins help us to create positive habits, which inshallah will stay with us for life. So this is why small wins are so important.
That's actually a very good point that you made about the fact that we can get into this autopilot state. I guess especially when you become an adult, which they say is a trap, which is true. Adulthood is a trap. Because I think what happens is when you're younger, you tend to experience the world more, and your senses are perhaps also more active and receptive. But becoming an adult, you could fall into the trap of having a routine, and this is when people say time flies. But if you try to sit in a room doing nothing, you will realize how slow time is. It can, so it all depends on the person's perspective as well. And I think these small wins can help us to perhaps form also new hobbies, and have that general sense of fulfillment in life as well.
Absolutely. I guess, it's not part of our talk today, but the idea of having forming habits, it's still important to have that consciousness and presence in those things that we do. Just, we should, I think there's a difference between something being a habit and therefore we keep doing it, but being present while we're doing those things, like praying. Praying can be a habit for me. But if I'm just doing it like a robot, then it really would defeat the purpose. So I do need to be present in those things. But the fact that it doesn't, every time it's prayer time, I'm not thinking, should I or shouldn't I? Not having that struggle, although obviously we all have a nafs and we can all have a struggle. But generally speaking, if it's part of my life, it removes a level of energy which I can put into other things, like being present in the prayer.
We had a reading circle a couple of months ago, and I think it was Ihya Ulumuddin. We were reading the textbook, and Imam was saying that he was saying, if you don't have a presence in prayer, one way to work on that is, before you start your prayer, think of who you're standing before, right? So that's I guess he's talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also he says that shaitan really comes into us and tries to disturb us when we're in a state of prayer. So he was suggesting that we recite Surah Falaq and Nas before every prayer. So make that intention, know who you're standing before, seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from shaitan by reading Falaq and Nas, and then start your prayer. That was one of his advices, to be more present in prayer. So that was nice that you mentioned that as well. I guess small wins are also connected to achievement, because when you do something and it's a win, it's an achievement at the end of the day. So why is this idea of achievement so important? How does that benefit us?
I would say there's two main ways. One, firstly, it can really impact on how we feel and how we move forward, because we are emotional beings. We have emotions, we have thoughts. So when I think of these two scenarios, so say I achieve something, there's two ways I can think about it. And in my mind, let's say the small win is that I spend 1 hour quality time with my child. Okay. And it's something that, I had to consciously think about, and thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and spend 1 hour quality time with my child. And going on what we've been discussing, so far, assume that it's something I don't normally do with my child. But today I thought, no, this is something that I feel is important and I will do. Now, scenario one, my response to that could be, Alhamdulillah, I spent 1 hour quality time with my child. I will cherish this moment immensely. I will cherish this experience. I will, and I really enjoyed it. And that was an hour that was very well experienced, or well spent, let's say. So that's scenario one. Now, scenario two could be, I'm such a bad parent. Out of the whole week, I just spent today with my child for 1 hour. So you're looking at what you haven't done in a way, and you undervalue the good thing you did that day. So even though in those both scenarios the person has done the very same thing, they've spent 1 hour with their child. In one, they see it as a little win, a small win, and they're grateful for it. And the other one, they look back at their track record and think, oh, I just did it today. So with the first one, when you have a small win, you actually have a rush of dopamine. which is a feel-good emotion. And when you feel good, you want to keep doing it. So that's another important thing, and that's part of that forming habit. Once you feel good about doing something, you are more likely to keep doing it. Whereas if I feel bad, the guilt, so with the second scenario, you know, I'm associating guilt with the experience in a way. So it makes it a bit more challenging to do it again, because I'm like, I'm such a bad parent. I just did it once. And then it could go down the road of why am I even trying kind of thing. So one motivates, the other demotivates. The other important part of it is that I really connect achievement with shukr, gratitude. And I think from an Islamic perspective, we need to do that. Now, when you think of shukr, it means being thankful to Allah for a blessing. Now, a blessing can be large or small. Okay, so a blessing is something that you're thankful to Allah for having in your, I guess, in your life, or something you've done, something you've thought. And it's amazing. The Quran actually says, if you are thankful, I will most certainly give you more. So Allah is telling us, if you are thankful for something, I'm going to give you more. So He wants us to be thankful. He actually wants us to be appreciative. He wants us to acknowledge the good. And again, usually when we think thankfulness, we think about it in relation to maybe sustenance, in relation to health, and that's not a bad thing. It's good to be thankful for these things, but it's much bigger than that. And Fakhruddin Razi, a 12th century scholar, he says that blessings can be in the area of material and spiritual. So he already expands it. So in the sense, if you're able to do something spiritually, it's a blessing. It's a blessing from Allah, and it's something that one should be thankful for. And I would say that everything, I think we can expand it more and say everything that we do good is a blessing, because it's something that's positive. But remembering all good is from Allah, we cannot remove Allah from the formula. So what good happens to us, so the little wins that we do have are a blessing. And when you see it that way, you're thankful. So this is why I think that it's important to feel that sense of achievement. But what's key from an Islamic spiritual perspective is you don't just attribute it to yourself. You acknowledge that you've done it, but you also thank Allah for it.
That's actually a very nice point, and perhaps something that a lot of people don't think about, because I guess in Islam we have this idea that everything we do has to be a form of worship, and we know that there's so much dua, supplications of the Prophet ﷺ, in every scenario in his life. And if you read some of these dua books, they have so many chapters. When the Prophet ﷺ stepped out of the house, he made this dua. When the Prophet ﷺ stepped in the mosque, he made this dua. When the Prophet ﷺ stepped out of the mosque, he made the dua. When the Prophet ﷺ changed his clothes, he made dua, like this. So in a way, yes, we are achieving things, especially if it's to do with perhaps wealth and body and so on, where people might think, oh, this is not, I shouldn't really think about God or worship or spirituality. But the point that you're making is that that's actually an opportunity to actually thank Allah for the ability to be able to do that. So not only are we gaining the rewards of that hard work, of the small wins, being consistent, but at the same time we're using that we're taking that as an opportunity to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that our actions will be a form of worship, and that will perhaps give a much more fulfillment, because you're not only fulfilling the rights of the body, but more importantly, you're fulfilling the rights of the soul, and the soul is satisfied as well. So that's a really nice point that you've connected it to.
And remember, we said actions are judged according to intention. So as you said, if everything is done for the sake of Allah, everything can become a worship. There's that one. And the other point I want to make, Sally, is something, someone doing 5 daily prayers, there are so many people who wish they could do their 5 daily prayers, but they just can't because of their nafs. They wish that they could. So someone who is able to do something like that should be thankful for it, should thank Allah for it. Someone who can sit down and read Quran should be thankful to Allah that they are able to do it and not take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we'll come to perhaps the final point of discussion, and that is some practical examples of small wins. Now, obviously, I mean, we could go for hours on
Yeah.
because it could be mental, psychological, it could be physical, it could be spiritual. But I'll give you an example of myself. Maybe you can give some examples personally of maybe certain things that you've achieved. I'm going to give an example where I haven't achieved it. So my friends always make fun of me because I've been trying to join the gym for as long as I remember. And every time I join it, after a year or two, I leave it. And then the joke is that you've given so much sadaqah to the gym because I keep paying monthly, but in a year, perhaps I attend 2 or 3 times, sometimes even once. But I guess it's something that I want to do. It just I haven't really been that motivated. So it'll be nice to also hear from your personal experience. What small wins have you consciously worked on? What have you achieved? Or are you still working on something currently? If you would like to share personally, obviously you don't have to, but it'll be nice to hear that.
Okay, I'll start with one, which is, we're talking about activity. For me, I haven't been a very physically active person probably in my life, and I can blame culture to some degree. Sport wasn't considered very important, but I guess as I'm getting older now, walking has become something that, I've tried bike riding, actually cycling, and that didn't work for me. So let's say I had a win of going cycling once, twice, but it didn't work. So this is an example where you might try something and it doesn't work for you. But I've always wanted to do something that's physical activity. So then my thing was going walking. Like for someone who, as I said, probably walked 10 times in their life, I thought, no, this is something I want to do. So the first time I went walking, after a long time, I acknowledged that I did something that was not easy for me to do. Like I got out of my comfort zone. It wasn't a habit at all, for example. So I felt good about it. And then after that, I went for another walk. I felt good about it. And now I could say that I go walking nearly every day. And there is other aspects to this as well, in the sense I've got a walking buddy. So that really helps. It's someone that, you're accountable to. So maybe with your gym ideas to how you need a gym buddy, that might help you. Someone who says, come on, we have to get going. So, that's one example. Another one would be like doing, tahajjud. I'll be honest, I don't wake up for tahajjud prayer every night. But when I do, I say Alhamdulillah. Like Alhamdulillah, I've prayed tahajjud today. And there's actually a hadith which is fascinating. It connects very well with this. And in this hadith, it says, if a man and his wife, or a man who wakes up for prayer and he wakes his wife up and they pray 2 rakat together, 2 units of prayer together, they will be recorded among those who constantly make a remembrance of Allah. So this, couple, or say let's potentially individual, wakes up for tahajjud once. That's all it's encouraging us to do, this hadith. It's saying once, it's like they are in constant remembrance of Allah. So that's a big win. And I just want to give another example, social media. So some of our wins are abstaining from things as well. So if I'm someone who's on social media too much and it worries me, I would put myself the goal of, okay, today or say tomorrow, Friday, I'm not going to go on social media at all. Just one. So I'm not going cold turkey and saying I'm never going on social media, but I might say tomorrow I'm not going to go on social media at all. Or tomorrow I'm not going to go on social media until the afternoon, 1 p.m., which might be something unusual for me if I go on it in the morning. So when I reach that goal at 1 p.m., I acknowledge it. It's like, oh, alhamdulillah, I achieved this small win. So you can see how it really changes your mood. It motivates you, and it makes you feel good about yourself, which is what we need to keep doing good. So there were some examples I thought of.
Okay, excellent. Very good, inshallah. And I think that brings us to the end of the conversation. Thank you very much, Dr. Zuleyha. There was a question on some of your recommendations dealing with mental health, especially since we are in lockdown. I know there's an event coming up on Saturday that you're hosting. Feel free to answer it now, or you can, wait till then. Up to you.
Yeah, firstly, we do have an event coming on Saturday with clinical and forensic psychologist Hanan Dover. I would highly recommend people tune in. They can go to our Facebook page to find the registration link. But as Sahel knows, as Melburnians, we've been through, I think, a total of 6 months of lockdown in Melbourne when you add it all up. And for me, some of the things I would recommend is exercise. Getting out, like going out into nature, even seeing the trees, it makes a difference. Having routine. Routine is so important. Even though you're in the house, have some routine. And thirdly, do things that you enjoy. If it's cooking, if it's reading, if it's sewing, knitting, find things that you enjoy that you may not have done for a while, but now you've got the time. And fourthly, connecting with people, like even through Zoom. I know it's not the same, but it still is something. So I would recommend that putting those extra effort to do those things. And it's not like you're going to feel, like it's all good all of a sudden, but it will make you feel at least a little bit better. But having said all that as well, if you need professional help, seek it. Please, there are so many. There's Hayat Line, for example, that's available. There's so many online phone call you can make and speak to a professional. That's always an option too that we should keep in mind. But of course, Hanan will have much more to tell us on Saturday, 7:30.
7:30. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. I hope that was beneficial. Thank you as well, Zuleyha, once again. It was a great pleasure having you on these live conversations. And hopefully we'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned. Have a good night, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.